Geoverse, Part 4, The Farmer and the Spy, by GeodesicDragon, Chapter 3, Pies, Cider, and Surprises. As I walked along the path, I could see Applejack load the cart with pies. I stopped walking and watched her. Her mane, still in its usual ponytail, swung idly in the cooling breeze that flowed through the orchard. I watched as she effortlessly picked up the boxes of pies and loaded them, her well-toned muscles glistening with sweat. She saw me watching her and waved. I quickly composed myself and went over. "Hey there, Sugar Cube," she said. "What brings you all out this way?"
"Pinky said you were getting more pies," I replied, "so I figured you could use some help."
"As a matter of fact, I do," she replied. "You will find boxes of pies in the barn. Just load them into the cart."
"Sure thing, AJ,"
I replied as I went into the barn. I did a double take on seeing the many boxes of pies. The barn seemed to be full of them.
"Whoa, Nelly,"
I called to Applejack.
"Are all these pies for Sugar Cube Corner?"
"Not all of them," Applejack called back. "I'm going to sell some at the market, so load them all up." I obliged, and picked up as many boxes as I could, loading them into the cart. It was hard work, and soon I was in the same condition as Applejack. I wanted to take my shirt off, but for some reason that felt like a huge cliché, so I left it on.
"Thanks a lot, partner,"
Applejack said, carrying 2 mugs on her back.
"I really appreciate your help, so I reckon you deserve this."
I took one of the mugs and took a sip. The resulting explosion of taste in my mouth took me by surprise.
"What is this?" I asked. "It's delicious."
"It's a famous apple family cider, of course," Applejack replied, giggling. "So this batch was fermented."
"So it's alcoholic?"
I said. Applejack nodded.
"Yep,"
she said. "Why, is that a problem?"
"Not at all," I responded. "I just didn't expect to find booze here."
"I'm guessing you haven't been to Berry Punch's shop, then."
"Who?"
"She runs Ponyville's only liquor store," Applejack replied. "Some folks say she drinks half a stock herself, but that's just a rumor." I snorted.
"Rumors are carried by haters, spread by fools, and accepted by idiots," I spat.
"I know, right?" Applejack replied. "Why, I heard a rumor about you the other day." I froze.
"What rumor?"
"That you'll have a secret special Sam pony."
"Is that it?"
"Pretty much," Applejack said. "I'm guessing it's a lie?"
"Almost," I said, blushing.
"Oh, I see it now," she said, a smile on her face. "You all have a crush on Sam pony, but you're too afraid to tell them."
"Got it in one," I said, as I took another sip of my cider. "I just don't know how she'll take it. I used to be a spy after all."
"I know what you were, John." Applejack laid a hoof on my shoulder. "But I also know what you are."
"And what am I?" I asked, confused.
"You're a good friend and a hard worker, and you took a beating just to prove the farmer. Any mare would be lucky to have you." I nodded and finished off my cider.
"You're right, but what if the one I like doesn't like me?"
"Shucks, darling," Applejack replied. "Any pony who doesn't like you has to be off in the head." I smiled and looked into her eyes, causing her to blush. I knew then that I had to take action. If I was going to make my move, it had to be soon. "So, if you don't mind," Applejack said, "who is the lucky mare?"
That was all I needed to hear.
Leaning forward, I planted a kiss on Applejack's lips. She didn't respond, but she didn't pull away either. I broke away and looked her straight in the eyes again.
"Does that answer your question?"
I asked. Applejack looked at me, shock written all over her face. She trailed off.
"Yes, AJ," I said. "It's you. I love you."
But why me?" she asked.
"Because you make me laugh. You gave me a job and a place to stay. You stood by me after my past was revealed. And because you're constantly on my mind."
Applejack laughed weakly.
"What's so funny?" I asked. "I'm pouring my heart out to you, and you haven't even said anything."
Applejack stopped laughing and ran a hoof along the ground. "Well, it's just that you were saying about what if your crush doesn't feel the way you do." I felt my throat constrict and my heart stop.
No, I said on the verge of tears. Don't say that." "Say what?" Applejack replied. "That I do feel the same way about you, and that I've also been working up the courage to tell you how I feel?" I stood in silence for a moment. "Well, what are you waiting for?" I said. "Tell me." Applejack shook her head. "No," she replied, "because I'd rather show you." With those words, she leapt on top of me, pinning me to the ground. Before I could protest, her tongue was in my mouth, vying for dominance. We stayed like that for what seemed like an eternity, our mouths intertwined as I ran my hands through Applejack's mane. Eventually, we broke off and took in some air. "So," I said, "you don't love me?" Applejack laughed and kissed my forehead. "I do," she said. She put her head on my chest and sighed contentedly. "Honestly and truly, I do." I smiled and stroked her mane, as the two of us lay together on the straw, listening to the birds and enjoying the cooling breeze. After a while, Applejack shot to her hoofs. "The pies," she said. "Shoot, I plumb forgot about 'em. We'd better get 'em to Sugar Cube Corner before Pinkie Pie decides to send out a search party." I laughed and stood up, dusting myself off. We went outside and Applejack fixed herself up to the cart as I stood behind it, ready to push it into town. "You ready back there, darlin'?" she asked. "Of course I am," I replied. Applejack began walking and I began pushing, the two of us working in perfect sync. As we walked, I stayed quiet, concentrating on making sure that the pies didn't fall out the cart. Applejack broke the silence. "You're rather quiet back there, mister," she said sternly. "Are you all checking out my flank?" "No, not at all," I quickly replied. A beat. "Why not?" Applejack said. Needless to say, we both spent the rest of the journey laughing.